Hello friends, here we are again, and we are going in for the deep dive. Alright, so today I wanted to get into what I mentioned in my last video, which was about why I made my decision to finally pursue this path, or how I finally decided to do it. Because I have, as you saw in the last video, been itching and itching to do it. And basically, a little backstory. Once I left high school, I went straight in to do my degree immediately, and because I didn't really want to stop school, I was afraid that if I stopped I wouldn't want to start back. And so I performed well in CAPE, and the subjects I did in CAPE were math, pure math, applied math, and physics. And I did those subjects because they came easier to me and I liked them, and so yeah, I performed well. Once I left high school, I had to decide what I wanted to pursue in university because I wanted to do it and get it over with. And I was like, what can I do with these subjects, that I might enjoy? And so I kind of just went, oh, engineering. And then honestly, I looked at what engineering programs UE offered at the time, and I knew I didn't want to do chemical engineering. And then I just put the rest of them in alphabetical order, and I got through the first one, and so I did civil engineering. And that's the story of how I became a civil engineer. There was no passion for concrete. There was no passion for anything else that civil engineers do. It was really sort of just like a happy accident. So anyway, that's how I got into it, and I did the degree. I got my degree, and I started working, and shortly thereafter realized I didn't really like it. But of course, being a high performing person, somebody who needs to do well and have others note that she does well, or notices that she does well, to feel valuable and worthy. Guys, I've been doing therapy for a long time. I know where my stuff is, or I know some of where my stuff is, and that really shows up in how I perform. I always performed academically and how I perform in the workspace. And so whether I like it or I didn't like it, I needed to be validated by the people in authority. And so I always went above and beyond, killed out myself doing everything, and performed really well. And if you ask anybody who I worked with, they would probably say, wow, Elena was a really great engineer. And that was actually probably part of what gave me the big push. So I was working with this company, and I had been working with them since I was in university. Every summer I would intern with them, and then after I graduated I went to work with them. And I then developed a really close relationship with the head of the company, and he was kind of like a mentor to me, really a mentor to me, for the past 2-3 years basically that I've been working there and taking on a more leadership role in the projects that I worked on. And I tell you guys, your stuff just shows up everywhere. This need to be validated. He filled that need for me because he was always impressed with what I would do. And I would be like, I'm not really doing anything special. I'm doing what I know to do. But yeah, he was always super impressed. And that cycle of, working really hard and doing something, and then having him be like, Elena, this is excellent work. That alone kept me there. Knowing I didn't enjoy being in the field, knowing I didn't want to do it, and I had found something that I would have liked to do. That was one of the big grips on me. It was one of those, it was irrational, because you'd ask me well, why don't you leave? And I mean, of course there's the other obvious things of well, I have to have money and this is my job, I have to have money to live. But beyond that, right, because I know I'm a capable person, I know that I can get another job, it was this thing of he had become almost like a father figure in my life because of the way I grew up in the industry under him. And I was I was almost addicted to the validation. And I was oh my god, if I leave, I don't know if I'm gonna of course this wasn't conscious, but in hindsight I can look back on it now and say that that really was one of the things that held me there in a death grip. And what really pushed me to finally have the conversation with him, where I said, listen, I know that you trained me and you spent a lot of time investing in me, but I really want to pursue something else, was because we went to this conference for one of the projects that I was working on, or that I worked on, and I really I was the the driving. I was the project engineer on the job, but it was almost like I was the project manager under his, tutelage. And we did really well, so well that the client invited us to come to Barbados for the conference to, sort of like give a talk about how we were able to manage the project so well. And at that conference, I met a lot of like people in the construction and engineering field. And it was people that I had, interacted with during the job, but of course COVID. So people that I had been talking to on the phone and sending emails with and having Zoom meetings with, but had never met in real life. And I finally met these people, people who were much my senior in the industry. And everybody, they were like, oh my gosh, you were the best. We so enjoyed working with you. You were so organized. You were so on top of everything. And it was just compliments about compliments. And you would think that, that would make me feel really good. But it really it was like building a brick wall on my shoulders. Like I just started to feel so much pressure. Like, oh my God, these people, they are looking at me and they think I'm this, and I had, oh God, imposter syndrome. I was like, guys, when y'all find out that I really, half the time don't know what I'm doing, and I have to ask so many questions and whatever, like the stories we tell ourselves in our heads, So I felt like all this pressure. And then another thought occurred to me on that trip, and I thought to myself, look how well I'm doing at something that I really don't enjoy. Nothing about it interests me, and I am like clearly a top performer. Look at these people just piling on the praise, and I didn't even feel good about it. It was like, okay, stop telling me that, because it's just gonna make me feel like I have to do more and continue to excel in this thing that I don't like. And I thought, if I could do so well at something that I really didn't have a passion for, like how well could I do at something that I really enjoy, and I feel like I could make a difference, and I would have that urge and that want to, sorry, I didn't put my phone on silent, ignore it. Yeah, and so all that and a little liquid courage. One evening we were having dinner and I had a glass of wine, and I was able to tell my boss, listen, and I just told him the truth. And you know what my boss said? He said, Elena, you can't be an engineer for me. You have to do what you have to do for you, and you need to go out there and do your thing. And he was so supportive. This man, I was like terrified of telling him, because I was like, oh my God, he's gonna be so disappointed. It crippled me from telling him. And he was just like, hey, and then, well, my boss, he went off telling me about all his nieces, nephews, kids, whatever, who decided that they wanted to try different things and follow their passions. And he's giving me all these examples of people who, do the same thing as I did. And I was like, oh my God, I could have had this conversation with this man 2 years ago. Just like so afraid of disappointing him, one, and two, like so terrified of like severing that addiction, the provision of like that validation that I always got from him for doing a good job. Yeah, and he was like, girl, go out there and do your thing. And he was so supportive. And I really started this video thinking I was going to talk about the other big thing that pushed me towards doing it, but I feel like this is probably like I've been recording for a long time, and there was so much to unpack there alone that I think maybe you could just like stop there for now, and I can continue and make this in a series and talk about the other thing in another video. But yeah, so that was like a really huge thing for me, and it was a big moment, and I was able to finally because I don't think I would have been able to take this step without like letting go or beginning the process of letting go that part of my life, and what that would mean. And it's scary as heck, like to have done a whole degree, started working, developing myself in this field. 10 years had passed since I left high school, and you have all these ideas about where you're supposed to be at that point in time. And if I had stayed on my trajectory of being an engineer and growing in that profession, in that field, I was showing promise, and it was like a big ask of myself to say, like, to stop that, like to say, put a break in it and start again. Like, I don't know if that's it comes easy for other people, but it took me 2 years to do it. So that tells you how how much I had to like build up and build up and build up and build up to it. And I finally did it. And so yeah, that's a little insight into what sort of like held me back from doing it for so long, and what actually pushed me to take that step to leave that company. And we still have like a really good relationship, which is so like, I'm so happy for that. But yeah, so okay, so that's a story. I didn't think that's the story I was gonna tell, but that's a story of how I left my old job, my job in engineering, and then I will tell the story of how I took the step to start a new degree in my next video. And I could also share with you a little bit about how I survived the in-between, and how I like the things that I did and how I was able to make ends meet, and yeah, what that experience of like being between leaving one thing and not exactly sure how I'm gonna like step into the next thing, what that was like. But I really believe for the type of person that I am, the personality that I have, or my patterns that I live with, I really think that step was necessary for me. And because a lot of people might have like worked right up until they figured it out, but I know myself, I would have just kept going on that hamster wheel. I've just kept going. I'd have just been like, oh, time is passing, I'm you know, dedicating time to this, I'm gonna keep going. So yeah, that is that part of my story. And I kind of like, my idea behind this is I hope like if there's anybody else who would be listening to this and you know could relate to any part of that, and is trying or wants to make a change, that they could, you know, see that I did it. And I mean, you're still here in the middle of my journey. Like, I can't look at you and say, and it all worked out, because look at where I am now, yet. But I am like, I have no regrets about this decision. I don't feel like, oh no, oh crap, I ruined my life. Like, I'm a firm believer that I am on the right track. And I am trusting that if I continue to be genuine and honest with myself and with the world, that everything will fall into place. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, fun story to tell. And yeah, this is like also the act of telling this story and having people listen to it is like also super scary. Because yeah, putting yourself out there is always scary, but as I said, like if I can impact anyone or give anyone a little like nudge in the right direction, or that little piece of like, oh my gosh, somebody else did it and they're doing okay. Yeah, because if I could have found the strength to do this 5-6 years ago, you know what, I'm not even going on that road. Everything happens exactly when it's supposed to happen. Okay, rambled enough. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. And oh, did y'all say I have a new backdrop? Y'all do not want to know the drama I had to go through to get this thing up. Anyway, yeah, thanks for joining, and we will continue this full disclosure conversation in the next video. Thanks. Bye.